Hello, welcome everybody. There's a few little housekeeping items to get to just before we get into the session. So first of all, a reminder everyone that there is the Ask the Speaker, and we encourage participation. So definitely encourage you to click that button and ask us. There's also that join the conversation to chat amongst your fellow attendees here. During the session, you will be muted and your video is off. And then I feel, to make this feel like we're in person, washrooms are at the back, out the door, something like that here. So, yes, my name is Dan Kiley. I'm the VP of Customer Engagement here at ebankIT. But more importantly, who you've really come today to talk to are some of these fine folks here. We do have another person joining us, just a little bit of technical difficulty, so will be joining us probably in a few moments. But while we wait on that person, we are going to do some lovely introductions here to the fine folks that have joined me here. So first of all, a very warm welcome for Sérgio. Sérgio has more than 30 years of experience as a strategist, a researcher, and an analyst focused on digital transformation of retail banking. As the director of Millenium BCP, he's currently responsible for future planning and implementation of banking branches and technology across the bank's network. Sérgio is joining us today all the way from Porto, Portugal. So welcome, Sérgio. Thank you for joining us today. And then we have Raveesh. So Raveesh is a director in Deloitte's digital banking and payments practice with over 15 years experience across core and digital banking, high value payments, EFT, ACH payments, and commercial banking / cash management. Raveesh has worked extensively with large Canadian and global banks in solving some of their most complex programs and has experience across both advisory as well as delivering execution of large programs. Raveesh holds an undergraduate degree in engineering and an MBA from, I should have made sure I could pronounce that, the School of Business. Thank you, Raveesh, for joining today. So we also have Romi joining us today. I will wait and, I think I see him right there, that he's going to be with us in just a half a moment.
There you go.
Romi, thank you for joining.
All right, I'm in.
Yeah. So we've just done introductions and you've come at the perfect time. You've done a grand entrance here. So Romi is currently the VP of Development PMO at Everlink Payment Services, where he focuses on developing Everlink's innovative digital payment solutions. He's also been very active in the fintech industry, where he co-founded Fintanium in the US, providing financial products to small and mid-sized businesses in North America. Previously, Romi has held senior positions as VP of Technology and Operations at Interact, where he oversaw e-transfers, mobile payments, and other core and amazing products. He's also served as a startup advisory for the Blockchain Hub at York University. So thank all of you for joining the panel today. I think it's going to be a great topic. So hopefully everyone is ready to hear from you folks here. So first, why don't we jump right into it? Sérgio, you spoke the other day of the new channels that are coming, the mix of channels that are coming into the payments world. Are you able to elaborate on that for our audience today?
As you know, as more technologies keep coming up on the scene, we have more types of players, and everybody was talking about payments. And for now, what payment means is always broadening and always evolving. So as the real time of forms of payment become the norm, this may turn in drive acceptance of payments types that today are right on the leading edge. For example, and as we know, everybody knows that you don't jump out of the bed in the morning excited because you are going to make a payment. You might be excited because you are going to make a deposit, or buying a new house, or buying a new car, and the payments suddenly became the makes part of our life. So the payments are transforming themselves is completely different from the concept that we have one year ago. And as the evolving of the payments, as the banks are going to bet on this type of buy now pay later, suddenly you don't have such a concept of payments. You have a lot of concepts related with payments, as you have suddenly you have the IoT of the internet, you have the IoT of payments, because the things themselves can be turning payments. So you see this multi-channel, this everywhere. Suddenly you can mix the payment in the everyday life of the customers, and the banks are always searching for that. I think is an introduction, and is something that in the bank we are looking for, looking at the customer journey of our customers, and suddenly understand how they use the payments for the everyday life, and trying to facilitate embedding the payment everywhere. This is something that will for sure will be a good start for our discussion.
Well, maybe Romi, we'll get you to maybe build on that. So Sergio spoke of these new channels in innovation. How about your perspective? How do you see some of the next big things for digital payment innovation happening around the world, and then maybe bring that back home to Canada as to which of these are maybe already here or coming very soon? Oh, we have you muted, Romi. We might need you to unmute.
I am unmute, my friend.
Yeah,
There you go.
good.
Okay, all right. What I see around the world, which is very interesting, is a lot of mobile payments. Sorry, a lot of payments being done over the mobile device, right? Which you see pretty much dominating in Africa, where the telcos is like I would say within North America is the new birth of delivering payments to pockets in the third world countries within Africa, doing payments, basically money transfers between vendor and also consumer. The other thing that I think is quite exciting and can't wait to get into it is really the mix between IoT and payments. So, everyone saw the commercial between Amazon checkout where you just go into the grocery store, put everything in the basket, just walk right out the store and having the I guess the grocery bill, debiting your account and stuff like that. So stuff like that I see, on the horizon. I do see as when we see these, NFC chips kind of coming into fruition and embedded into your clothing, into grocery stores and stuff like that. That's where I see a ton of excitement. In-car payments, we are, I see we're hopefully, knock on wood, jump with the vendor to do in-car payments. So imagine, driving up to Tim Hortons and just driving through, right, and seeing payments happen behind the scenes. So it's taking the friction out of payments by taking out the debit card or your mobile device to tap. It's just carry on throughout your day, and hopefully the payments will latch on afterwards.
Here nor there, I've always, if someone knows the answer to this, I've always wondered if I'm going to get a ticket for pulling out my mobile phone in the drive-through to pay with my phone, because I'm now distracted driving, I guess, in the drive-through. Raveesh, how about we put on the commercial banking hat for this? Are you seeing an evolution in how Canadian banks and financial institutions are modernizing their channels to support the business side of things?
Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting dynamics that are shaping investments in commercial channels. If we look at the traditional channels and segments, the Canadian banks have historically put more focus on the mid-market commercial institutional clients. The way they approached earlier, the experience was, let me give these businesses an awesome online experience, right? And that was yesterday. What has been shaping up the next gen of investments is we need to ensure there is contextual awareness of our customers' business as they move around the different channels. Banks are looking to build their customer journeys and then build out their investments to ensure there's support across the different customer journey pitch points for the different businesses. I do believe that with the new innovations that are coming up in the ecosystem, that we as an industry are investing. ISO 2022 is one of them. There will be a push for FIs to look at their online channels and product systems and really re-evaluate investments that can unlock commercialization opportunities. So the plumbing and the heavy lifting would be done in the next 2 years. But how do you, uh, send that, enable that value for your end businesses? And that is where a generalist cross-platform approach, I believe, wouldn't work. It will be more of what are the problem points with, say, insurance or with government that can be solved on the back of these foundational investments. Now that's on the mid market and the corporate side. If we go down this to down this I guess spectrum to the small businesses, I believe there's ample opportunities there to improve the online experience. At Deloitte, we recently did a survey of some of our small business customers, and there was a recurring theme that we heard. um, these businesses, they want to focus on growing their business and not necessarily worry about the payments banking side of things. They expect their banking partners to be their advisors, and as an industry we are not there yet. um, they expect you know um, self-service and seamless features to be enabled through the online channels, but at the same time they want the bank to move with them as they grow, as their business grows. And it shouldn't be that as a small business grows they have to switch portals, move to different systems. It has to be a seamless enabling on unlocking of features as the needs of the business evolve. So should the portal. So that flexibility needs to be with the bank and not a headache of our small businesses who should be focusing on their growing their business, managing their business. So that's the traditional channels. The other piece that before this panel, Sergio and I were talking about is the new channels that are evolving for small businesses and mid market. And with service models such as open banking and embedded finance, banks really need to make sure they are readying themselves for an ecosystem of partnership as well and competition. So how do they do that? What's their API strategy? Are they having services at the right level of granularity so they can partner with fintechs that are bringing in this amazing user experience and go to market quickly? So that's the other piece where banks are focused on. They have their API strategies, but the secret sauce is in how they have defined it and what level to be able to go to market quickly.
Great. Okay. Um, Now on to sort of the second theme that we had here, and we're going to start with Romi. We're going to start with you first. So, how do you see the digital payments landscape evolving as we move to open banking and having an open banking framework, especially from that consumer perspective?
Sure. So there's consumer and there's also corporate customers. So I'm going to just spring off of what the last speaker was saying. What's happening is that the open banking, as open banking comes to fruition, it's going to actually simplify payments. Okay, and what does that mean? So imagine a world where you have a small business logging into a portal and they want to apply for a loan, or they want to see their cash at hand or a business or something like that, like their balance sheet. So what we've seen with some of the fintechs down the road, I'm just kind of where my co-founding hat on that we do is we capture all the accounting information for a business that kind of displays their balance sheet in a snapshot. And what that offers, what that allows to do is basically it allows the fintech companies to basically you do spot loan financing. And what happens is the information that comes from the spot loan financing will come from the financial institution with their open banking APIs. There's actually some pretty progressive banks in Canada that actually have those APIs available for fintechs and the like to actually consume. So when you see a small business, operating, doing their normal thing, they're basically try to maximize their cash balances as much as they possibly can by, paying out invoices or receiving invoices coming in and just, try to find that sweet spot of cash management for them to actually make payroll. And what we've seen in the today is that when we have these spot loan financing to actually adjudicate a business for a particular payment instrument in almost like in a real time fashion, it helps the businesses to run their business, right? On that part of it. From a consumer perspective, what we've seen is basically a lot of FX, right? So, they need to check their account balance basically to actually send money to India. And there's a lot of third parties like Remitly and stuff like that, or TransferMate, that I've seen today. It would be very healthy to understand what their account balance is at let's say at RBC or CIBC or whatever the case may be, so they can actually do the FX. Usually, is a swivel share type of application. They go to the online banking to see if they have enough funds to send money over. It would be nice. It would be nice if you just go to an FX app. You open up an account and it actually feeds your account balance, so you can actually go ahead and send money right away. So I believe that the open banking strategy is going to unlock some very interesting, I would say, probably more of an amazing user experience, because you kind of have all that information at your fingertips to actually press a button and actually do whatever transaction you're trying to do. The other things that I see from an open net banking perspective, and actually, just tying into the payment ecosystem, is to have all that valuable data in front of the consumer and or the business to actually perform a transaction, as opposed to scouring between different applications and just kind of recording everything and actually spin off the action that they intend to do. So having that kind of one screen with all that information, I think, is very valuable for a consumer. And we're in an age where an average consumer has multiple accounts. Having an app to kind of show all their account balances, irrespective of who they bank with, is actually also very powerful as well. And I'm a big fan of Plaid, honestly, even though they do similar to what open banking is supposed to do, but that's actually simplified. Fintechs alike, work to sell products and services. Having open banking, I would imagine, would be even a better user experience, because you actually have the data from the actual financial institution in more of a real time fashion. So when I see stuff like that, and as open banking progresses, especially in Canada, I think we're a little bit behind the eight ball. I completely believe that the user experience, especially from a consumer perspective, and especially if I look at my son, and it's like their attention span is just so much that they need that instant gratification. Have all this data coming and serving onto a single screen to do whatever they intend to do is actually going to be a remarkable thing, and I'm actually looking forward to open banking coming to Canada.
Then just to confirm what Romi is saying, and I think that in Europe, namely in Portugal, for example, we just are using that with open banking. So in our app, we have the aggregation of the accounts of the other banks using the open banking, but we can also make this payment initiation using the account of the other bank. And so this is something that is available for us as a TPP, as a bank, but also available for all the fintechs that want using these platforms, and they just have to connect, and this make the whole world completely available for everybody. And this is open banking is really working, and even the banks are trying to move to the next level, like working and acting as a fintech, because is available for everybody. The opportunities are the same for the banks and for the fintechs. We can make the payment initiation using our app as the fintechs can do it. Just this simple remark. Okay.
Yeah, and maybe Raveesh, do you want to pile onto there as well? Maybe the commercial aspect again, or
Yeah, no, I will definitely talk about on the commercial side. So, if you look at the commercial payments, it's traditionally been batch payments, the EFTs, EDIs, and the high value payments, wire payments. Now, as part of payments modernization, current focus has been on the real-time rail and the high value payments ecosystem. But even if you take a step back, there's lots of investment going in the high value payments network, even in local market infrastructures and globally as well. There are more than, I guess, 70 odd market infrastructures that are moving to ISO as a standard for innovation. So that's pretty massive. For the longest time, high value payments used to be used to be said as, hey, these payments, there's lack of transparency, there are high fees. I'm not sure when is the payment going to land in an account. So what are the delays, right? So it used to kind of face those problems for the longest time. But now we are starting to see some investments that haven't happened in decades. Swift, as the default network for cross-border payments, is really evolving its role in facilitating international commerce, right? So it is there are innovations around Swift GPI, which is the Global Payments Innovation. It's a program that Swift has started, where it is providing the ability for banks to track their payments, obtain transparency on fees, so on and so forth. The second piece, and this is close to heart, it's on the potential of the new schema that we are moving to, the ISO schema. And I've gone into a lot of depth on the power behind the structured information and how it can really unlock efficiencies, right? And while the foundation is being set up, a lot needs to be done to really unlock those efficiencies. But the potential is massive, right? Think about a trade finance transaction. You are when the supplier is sending materials to the buyer, they have a bill of lading, and then it goes through a separate chain to the buyer. They need to reconcile, and at that point, they release payment to the supplier. So there is days sales outstanding. There is the supplier needs to wait to get money for the shipment of goods and services. In the new world, and if we use ISO here, it has got the structure to send all that information along with the payment, where at the buyer side, if you can reconcile it using, because we are structured, so you can reconcile it, you can immediately release payment. So that is a real benefit or value to the supplier who may not have the means to stay with open invoices for too long, right? So those are benefits that will need support from the ecosystem, but the starting point is there. From a channel standpoint, we have traditionally seen a lower STP impacting flow of high value payments. However, there are certain services that the Swift has uh, enabled, like the beneficiary account matching service, where before you actually send the payment, you can validate the beneficiary details. Now, as an initiating institution, if you make sure you have enabled those pieces through your online channel, it dramatically improves the STP rate for or straight through processing rate for your wire payment. So there are in the traditional wire payments ecosystem, there are innovations being done. However, if we kind of now look at the non-traditional players, they're bringing a different value prop to the table. Um, my father, he's recently visiting from India, and he tried to move $200 from his Indian account to his Canadian account, and on $200 he was charged like $40 as fees by the traditional networks. He then used Wise to do that, and he got like he was charged $2 as fees. So so that's where for the retail side, there are these alternate options that are coming to table, which have a massive difference on the retail side for people moving money around. However, as we look from a business standpoint, the piece that is very interesting to me is the evolution of CBDCs, where there are some the way current traditional networks work, there is always credit risk and liquidity risk that is at play, because there is one end of the transaction that's being done and finished, and then the other end is still open. So the bank is facing credit or liquidity risk. However, with CBDCs, they kind of address that problem. There is, and that's why a lot of the central banks are investing a whole bunch of time, including Payments Canada, in exploring this avenue more. So this is still early days for the non-traditional like CBDCs uh, uh, to kind of become center stage, but definitely it's something that banks and FIs should be keeping in mind as they think about the next 5 to 10 years of how they service this business.
You spoke in the middle of that about Wise, and I will just call out and say what an amazing experience they've done to make that, to keep people informed throughout the whole journey of moving your payment, not just low fee and quick, but if your payment is at all delayed, they're giving you a nice little pop up, and to me, it's a spectacular user experience that most of us strive for. Yeah. So Sergio, I know we've spoken. I think very similar to this in that you have some insights around what you would more call the payments for all, which I think is a build on sort of open banking and how that would come to play. Would you be able to share some of that with us today?
Yes, one of the things that we know that historically banks thought that the payment system are theirs. So historically, the banks saying no, we are the owners of the payments. But nowadays, we know that this is not true. We are saying that with the open banking and with all those effects that we have, we know that the payments are everywhere and they cannot be only for the banks. So, and we know that the banks have the greater competition and their share, of course, are dwindling. So, and some banks will realize that the payments is no longer economically viable option for them, and other banks deliberately will double down on payments. So this is an effect that the payments for all and this type of concept is affecting all the banks in a great manner. So for the banks, it will almost become a binary choice. So they have to say, or we going to double the payments and bet on payments and will be payments everywhere, or simply they will deliver this part of the task to the other fintechs and people more specialized on payments. And other part could be integration. For example, we are talking about the Wise and the TransferWise. We decided, for example, because TransferWise was one of the companies that were doing very well with this type of payments and FX and so on. So what we decided is to integrate TransferWise in our app, completely integrate this part of the TransferWise using the APIs of the TransferWise integrated completely in our app. And we don't worry about the effects and so on. So it's simply completely integrated. And like this, we offer a wide range of payments and effects and all this type of effects. So when we are talking about these payments for all, is something that we have to democratize the facility of having these payments available in our app, in joining to fintechs that were doing and they are specialized in doing this very well. So this is a concept that the banks have to face it and make decisions and then integrate with fintechs, or simply they have to bet on that. And the other part of the payments for all is something that we can extend the payments to the lending part and to the credit part. So when you are making this payment, you are at the same time postpone the possibility of the customer to divide the payment and simply have this credit on at the moment of the buying. So this buy now pay later is more an in-app situation where we can just, when you are making the buying, you are at the same time have the credit for this. So the payment suddenly can expand into different manners. One, more dedicated to this sending money to other parts with FX associated and so on, to other coins and currencies and so on, where we have very good fintech specialized on that. And then the other part that the banks also want to make part of it is the buying process, where they can at the same time have the credit part involved in this situation. So the banks have also to look at to these aspects, and this is mainly common, at least here in Europe, several banks having these functionalities.
So, for the audience, I want to make it very clear: we were not paid or endorsed by Wise in any ways. This was completely organic. This was not in our talking notes ahead of time. I also see that Robin in the chat channel also mentioned Wise was fantastic. So, Wise, you can send me all the marketing dollars. Hopefully, they're on the chat today, and realize that that's a paid endorsement spot, I think. But so. Folks on watching in here today, so we are hoping to have some interactability here. So we are getting coming up on that point where it would be great if you did have any questions or comments for any of the panelists here or myself to think about them and get them in. So we're going to go into sort of the last little bit of the formal topic here, and hopefully that then just reminds you to start thinking about maybe a question you may have to turn this a little bit more interactive. So let's see, who have I not started with here? Raveesh, I think I haven't started with you. So final question, it's going to be the same sort of to all three of you this time. We heard today about many aspects of payments, the exciting user journeys that are coming along, the omni-channel sort of experience that's going to be needed to power some and of those payments. So any of those final thoughts you want to share with the audience today around anything you heard or something we haven't yet talked about today?
Yeah, I mean, it has been, this has been sprinkled in the conversation so far, but let me kind of summarize from my vantage point. Through the payments modernization program, which it's a once in a generation program that that the Canadian industry is going through collectively, we have spent significant investment, blood, sweat, and tears in uplifting the back-end capabilities, and we continue to do so. However, financial institutions, to translate this into value for end corporates, there has to be some work that needs to happen in the middle tier and the channel side. At Deloitte, we have been very privileged to stand shoulder to shoulder with our clients and help navigate some of these complexities in the evolving ecosystem. For the I believe for the commercialization to happen effectively, it has to be not a tech-led transformation, but a business-led transformation where there has to be enough thought put into what specific problems are we trying to solve for, and that will be a factor for specific businesses, which industries they focus on, where they see value or revenues in the years to come. What are the industries they want to focus on? What are the problem points in those industries? And how do we solve for those and be able to enable that through quick MVPs on the back of investments that have been made. So that has to, and this has to also correlate to, I spoke earlier about enhancing the omni-channel experience and even having that contextual awareness as your business clients, they get more used to switching channels, right? So right now there's online. We are hoping that different professionals like treasury and all, they have access to mobile to be able to get inputs real time, make decisions. So there has to be right contextual awareness as these users switch channels. So that has to be planned through. So that's on the channel side. On the mid-tier side, again, bringing back what I spoke earlier about API strategy and also kind of lending to what Romi said earlier. While fintechs are kind of building that stellar experience, there are opportunities. The data is with the banks. It has to be monetized. And for them to do that, this API strategy and enablement needs to be thought through in terms of where the market demand is. The last piece that I want to leave the audience with is, we are entering into a world of real-time payments. Everything will happen in an instant, but that also means fraud and other risks are also heightened. So while you're going on this amazing journey to enhance experience, make sure your controls are keeping pace with how you evolve. Otherwise, it's going to create a lot of challenges. You saw that when UK released their real-time payments, initially the fraud instance went up, and they had to kind of react and kind of build those controls in as an industry. There now the limits are going to go up to almost £1 million sterling. So that creates a whole different set of dynamics and motivations to get and to do fraud for the fraudsters. So you need to make sure you're one step ahead. That is something that we can learn in Canada and make sure we are ahead of the curve rather than going through the same cycle again.
How about yourself, Romi? Any last parting thoughts you want to share with the audience here?
Sure. A lot of good points came up in the last question that you've asked, but just to kind of heighten, uptime, right? Demand for speed, 100% availability is always, is what's making my hair grow even whiter. Tell you the truth, right? Cybersecurity attacks, privacy, that is all top of mind, right? Because there's some sensitive data, and with ISO 20022, there's more data, right? So we need to make sure and ensure that we're good custodians or guardians of that data. So that's always, from our perspective, as Everlink as a processor, we're always, putting that as a forefront. And we're actually, we're investing a lot of, we're making a tremendous amount of investments into that area just so we can keep the data safe and secure on that part of it. So, and then our traditional our fraud engines that we have today has to be, bent in a different way. From when real time comes into play, right? There's going to be a lot of pre-checks before we actually do a real time transaction. So there's going to be a new source of data that's going to be coming into our fraud engine to get, to create new vectors and to develop new rules to ensure that we lift off, the right transaction in a very safe way. This is where I think, open banking is very exciting. Because if you can imagine doing some open banking API calls to the actual person that's actually the recipient part of it, just to ensure that is the right person, maybe trigger an SMS. Hey, we have a transfer coming into you from Romi, Kohli. Do you know this person? All these little things. It's going to really help the operational efficiencies and also combat fraud as well. So when you take all these types of interesting APIs and create an interesting journey. It really helps to secure the payments that are happening, and then when you add in real time as well, from our perspective, we're not a bank, okay? We're not a bank, but we process, we do a lot of payment transactions. We sell our solutions to financial institutions, right? So having these real time rails, these APIs, it helps eliminate some of the operational risk challenges to lift off payments. So I'll give you a good case in point. If I want to, send money to to another entity, whether it's a business or the consumer, it's a good funds model. I have to ensure that the financial institution or the fintech has the funds in their account before I lift this payment off and send it to somebody else, right? With real-time payments, the risk model actually lessens because I can, take the money out of the fintech's account, stage it, and then send it off to, to a supplier, to, international remittance, to another consumer, right? To a grocery store, to a vendor, to Tim Hortons, as an example, right? So it starts, the world becomes a much more happier place. And I think the operational risk of holding funds and ensuring that the funds are there before we lift off a payment, lessens as well. So, I'm extremely excited, what the direction that Canada is actually going. I'm a bit of a, activist to get things done quicker. I just wish we can, go faster to get these, type of kind of safe harbor events into our payment stacks. But, there's also, a risk of going too fast as well too, right? So we just have to, I think we're headed down the right road. I think there's a lot of lessons learned around the world, especially, Britain and the example that was, voiced here as well too. I think we're doing extremely well, and we're going down the right path. And when you have real time, when you have open banking, and when you have ISO 20022, just wait for the use cases that are going to be coming up. I think that the consumers and also the businesses in Canada are going to embrace it well.
So we are running near the end of the session here. And so, Sérgio, maybe for your closing remarks, I wonder if we could go to the question from Miguel. and perhaps start with your sort of international expertise kind of thing and see if it makes sense here. So Miguel has asked, with open banking and instant payments becoming a reality in so many different countries, is there a specific example that comes to mind of a country doing exceptionally well on improving payment experience? And I'll pass it over to you in a sec. From my experience, I'm not sure I can call out a single country, in that I've been so enamored as to how each country has their own cultural needs and how they've really solved it unique to them. And so when we talk to our customers in South Africa and how they've really gone heavy with WhatsApp because that's what everyone uses, to me it blows me away. But it works, it works very well because that's what the population really wants. Or a customer in Switzerland, they've gone a completely different way, and it works really well for their cultural. And so for me, I just get enamored by understanding how each country is, we're all the same in some ways and in our payment needs, but we've also all grown very differently and stuff. So Sérgio, I want to give you an opportunity to also speak here at the end. Thoughts?
I think that it's very difficult to choose one country. It's true. But if I have to choose the country that starts earlier and improves a lot the open banking and this whole connection, I would choose the UK. Okay, because they really start very early with the open banking, and the banks really bet in having a open banking very developed with a lot of transactions, a lot of possibilities of using all those open banking APIs and merge with use cases. I would say that they start very earlier than the European rules. But after all, what the Europe as a whole has done is making these rules with the experience of the UK, and they start to evolve and making laws for all the central banks in Europe. So what happens now is, for example, in our app in Portugal, I also have aggregation of banks from UK, from Spain, from France, and as a Europe, for example, this movement of the APIs are always evolving, and I think that Heva is doing a great job on that, because it's making rules and everybody using the same type of APIs. And of course, this facilitates the integration, not only for the banks, but also for the fintechs, for example. So everybody knows what will be the future of payments in Europe, because the rules are centralized and they are always making these rules for payments. So I would say it's not only a country, it's more than compiling of rules and APIs that are normalized for everybody using the same way. And what can bring us to the future is something that in the future probably we'll have this type of money that knows what to do with self, with data and programmable money and so on. So this will be the evolution of all this movement of the APIs and payments for the future for all.
Great, thank you. And so it is time to wrap up, folks. Really appreciate everyone who joined and was out there listening to us today. Hopefully you found it engaging and got some things out of it today. I want to thank Payments Canada for allowing us to be here today, and then thank to my esteemed colleagues here who joined me today. Really, Romi, Raveesh, Sérgio, thank you very much for joining, and thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.